Good afternoon, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz, and here is your detailed afternoon update for the 3rd of February 2025 on the North Queensland flooding emergency that's currently unfolding for locations between Cardwell down to Ayr. I'm going to be giving a detailed forecast update on it this afternoon, so stick around to the end of the video and I'll be able to tell you what's expected for your location and at what time. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing. But let's get stuck straight into things with a current look at the radar imagery and what's streaming into the North Queensland area at this time. We've had reports of significant rainfall observations already in the last couple of hours around Townsville and Ayr, and that rainfall is only going to keep increasing by the looks of things. We were seeing this on the forecast for the last couple of days, but we didn't really expect a massive train of rainfall, and it's much bigger than what this image here suggests. You can see this morning it's extending right up towards Cooktown off the coastline. Now, of course, not all of this rain train here is going to head over to the North Queensland coastline, but it gives you an idea of just how widespread this rainfall is right now and how much thunderstorm activity is associated with this rainfall. It is, however, sliding, which is kind of the saving grace here in terms of the good news for areas around Townsville especially. But for locations in the Horton and the Burdekin River areas, there's some really bad news here with this rainfall. It is streaming into the Ayr area, and then it's going to be heading between Townsville down towards Bowen throughout the remainder of today. And also isolated heavy falls still occurring across the Ingham and the Cardwell area. However, they should be clearing off by the time this video comes out. So the heavy falls are very widespread and still causing some pretty substantial problems as well across North Queensland. In terms of the forecast for Townsville, it's a little bit hard to say at this time with what rainfall they're going to be receiving later on tonight into early tomorrow morning. The Bureau of Meteorology is actually suggesting quite a lot of rainfall with a further 200 millimetres on the cards over the next 36 hours. And I definitely reckon that that's on the higher side of what could be expected for the Townsville area. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be surprised, especially with how this weather event has unfolded, just smashing expectations left, right and centre if 200 millimetres was to unfold around the Townsville area. But my number right now will be somewhere between 80 to 150 millimetres of further rainfall coming through, which again pales in comparison to the falls that have already been reported, but that extra 150 millimetres will cause some really significant problems in the Ross and the Bowley rivers as well. So we will be keeping a very close eye on the flooding situation down there as well. Currently they're at the moderate flooding alert, both areas at their Weir on the Ross River and also at the Bowley at the Mount Bowley alert. They're both at moderate flooding alerts right now. However, I do expect those to rise at least temporarily, possibly up towards the major flooding alerts later on tonight into very early tomorrow morning. So major flooding again possible around the Townsville area later on tonight. I've been a big fan of the convective forecast model and their forecast solution throughout the remainder of this morning as well. So we're going to be taking a look at that, considering they've basically hit the nail on the head, the Axis C convective forecast model here, at least in the initialization. So I do reckon that this is going to plan out pretty much exactly how the Axis is suggesting here, with that low pressure system moving offshore from Cardwell and Ingham throughout the remainder of this morning, and then later on tonight into early tomorrow morning, funneling in more showers, heavy at times, in fact intense falls expected later on tonight into early tomorrow morning around the Townsville area, and just extending between Cardwell down towards Ayr in general. You can see those heavy falls expected there throughout the remainder of the forecast period into early tomorrow morning. But yeah, I'm a big fan of how the convective forecast model has initialized this weather event here. It does keep the bulk of this rainfall here, the really heavy stuff offshore, but we're still expecting moderate to heavy falls to continue occurring around the Townsville area, especially along the coastline. I mean, it's not going to penetrate too far inland. You can see it on the radar imagery right now. It does not penetrate too far inland at all, but these moderate heavy falls, patchy at times, will be occurring around the Townsville area along the coastline, but it's especially areas between Cape Ferguson here across towards Ayr and even further south than that, pretty much right down towards Bowen is where the worst of the falls are expected to be, and I do expect them to be in the Horton River catchment area around Girra and Ayr. This is where the worst of the rainfall is expected to fall over the next couple of hours, and between the forecast models you can see that's also reciprocated between the EastModF, which I class as a very reliable forecast model as well. But yeah, the worst of the rainfall isn't going to be coming through for probably another couple of hours until this video is released, and we'll be seeing these falls here really pipe up at around 8 or 9 o'clock tonight, and they'll be at their most intense into early tomorrow morning before finally clearing out by the looks of things tomorrow afternoon and into tomorrow evening. So you've still got a couple of hours of respite with the rainfall here, but they will be coming in later on tonight into very early tomorrow morning, and you can see them really building now offshore from the Queensland coastline, expecting these to be these thunderstorms here, especially up offshore from Cairns and the Cassowary Coast, this band of thunderstorms here to be the problem maker and the real rainmaker for those locations between Townsville and Ayr. It is a very complicated forecast and there is a lot of moving parts here, but I guess the kind of simple answer here is expect rainfall around the Townsville area later on tonight into very early tomorrow morning, and also in towards later tomorrow morning as well, with the heaviest falls, like I said, being concentrated between Townsville and Ayr, and like I said, falls between 80 and 200 millimetres possible. For Townsville, I don't see any more than 150 millimetres coming through there, but again, we could be absolutely stunned. It doesn't really make too much of a difference if they get 100 millimeters or 300 millimeters. It will be a problem if they get more than 300 millimeters around Townsville. For the most part, they have escaped the absolute worst case scenario in terms of flooding, which was a repeat of 2019. There's still a lot of inundation around some of the suburbs around Townsville, and it's just been really heartbreaking to see the flooding emergency unfolding across North Queensland. It's really hard to watch some of these photos get sent in and some of the videos as well. It really is quite shocking and quite jarring stuff. But in terms of flooding, they have escaped the absolute worst case scenario, which could still unfold if they get another like 300 or 350 millimeters tonight, which is a very, very slim chance, but we can't be completely ruling it out at this time. But yeah, I reckon around Townsville, somewhere around that 150 millimeter ballpark is all they're going to get, which will add to the river levels, of course, but it's not going to add to them by too much. So if you're fine from flooding right now, I don't expect flooding to be a major problem in your location later on tonight. This will be the icing on the cake for some locations, though. If they have or are very close to being inundated with water, then there is a chance that water actually does creep up later on tonight. But I reckon river levels have peaked for this flooding event, and whilst they will rise later on tonight into early tomorrow morning, they won't get up to the peak that they were at about 24 hours ago. So that is the good news at this time. Whilst we do have some more rainfall coming in, especially around Townsville and then further up the coastline, I mean, they absolutely do not need another drop of rainfall in the Herbert catchment, that's for sure. Ingham and Halifax are they're pretty much total losses, to be honest, especially around Ingham. A lot of the properties down there are just total losses, and it's gonna I think the only solution around some of these areas, especially around Ingham, is just a bulldozer at this point. It really is sad to see that they're pretty much the worst floods on record over there, and fortunately enough that there isn't too much rainfall coming through throughout those areas. Again, around Ingham, another 100 millimeters from this rainfall event is sort of what's expected. There could be some heavier falls later on tonight into early tomorrow morning to cause some flash flooding, but those river levels will start to drop off throughout today, especially throughout the receding tide around midday. We're expecting a big drop in the water levels and the river levels up there because the rainfall has eased off there, and it has eased off for the last couple of hours, which is very good news indeed. But yeah, I mean, this is just really dramatic stuff across Queensland. I've never seen something like this happen across Queensland. This does remind me a lot of Tropical Cyclone Jasper, except the thing with Jasper is when it stalled, it delivered 2,000 millimeters over about 8 or 9 days in far north Queensland. This has delivered close to 2,000 millimeters over the past 5 days, with the most significant observations being around Palama Dam and Rollingston, with 1,700 millimeters apiece over the past 100 hours. So some whopping rainfall accumulations. I think that goes without saying. And then falls between 1,100 and 1,500 millimeters around the Ingham and the Cardwell area, especially across Halifax and Lucinda. Some huge rainfall accumulations there. Further up the river in the Herbert River, we've had falls up to about 1,600 millimeters there. And then down the coastline towards, I think it's Bucklands Beach or Bucklands Bay, we've had some really significant falls down here. Blue Water Creek as well in the catchment, they've had up to 1,300 millimeters there. Mount Stewart, some of the stations along Mount Stewart have had about 1,300 millimeters as well. Townsville's picked up 900 millimeters so far. Both Gira and Eyre approaching 900 millimeters of rainfall, and again with the 200 or 300 millimeters that will come through for Giru and Eyre tonight in the Horton and the Burdekin River catchments. We'll be looking at totals there of about 1,200 millimeters. So follow the cursor closely, but pretty much everywhere that I'm circling right now has picked up or will pick up at least 1,000 millimeters, a meter of rainfall in under a week from this rainfall bomb, basically. This is just huge stuff, record-breaking stuff, and some locations have quite clearly picked up a lot more than that as well. Very concerned right now for the Ross River, considering that there is more rainfall coming into the Ross River catchment, and the Ross River Dam is already approaching, I believe it's 190% capacity, certainly a chance of ticking over the 200% capacity, with water now about 4 meters above the weir level, which is huge. That is, it's not unheard of, but it is absolutely massive indeed. That just shows you how much water is coming through when you've got 4 meters of water over the top of the maximum height of the dam. I mean, that is just massive and can only happen in far north Queensland pretty much. The Horton River as well is going to pick up some pace really quickly tonight. It's already at major flooding around Giru, so Giru, I'm expecting some disastrous flooding to unfold there. Thankfully, Giru is a very small population centre, but all along the Horton River, I'm expecting it to burst its banks dramatically as well, and we'll likely see comparable flooding to 2019 and also back to Tropical Cyclone Debbie in 2017 as well. I'm expecting some significant flooding in this area here, and basically a massive inland sea to open up in the swampy mangrove areas in this part of Queensland here between Townsville and Eyre. The Burdekin River, it takes a lot to flood the Burdekin. It is a big river, but it's also got a very big catchment, and a lot of these tributaries feeding into the Burdekin are flowing up minor to moderate flooding alerts right now, with more rainfall coming in tonight exactly where the catchment is. I mean, through here around Giru, I believe that this is the Bowling Green Bay National Park here, around the Bowling Green Bay National Park, and then down into the mountains adjacent south of Townsville and next to Charters Towers, expecting some huge rainfall accumulations there again tonight, 200 to 300 millimeters, and possibly even more at some of the stations here, and all of those rivers and creeks flow either straight into the Burdekin or straight into the Horton. So already those rivers struggling with their water that they're receiving right now. I definitely expect some moderate flooding in the Burdekin River, and then major flooding to continue in the Horton River as well, flowing through Giro. And I do have concerns for Giro right now. The town at least is going to receive some really significant flooding problems, that's for sure. Further down the coastline, tributaries flowing into the Queensland coastline here, especially around Bowen, Mount Buckley, Abbott Point, expecting some flooding through there, but nothing too crazy. Moderate flooding at the absolute worst here, and some big coastal inundation as well from inland seas that are going to open up from the rainfall. But for the most part, it looks like further down the central Queensland coastline, they will be fine in terms of the rainfall. Same deal with Proserpine and Mackay, nothing too crazy expected in the future from here. But yeah, in terms of those rainfall accumulations, I mean, we haven't really touched on those so far, but in terms of the convective forecast model, I really like their solution for the rainfall accumulations now out until Tuesday. The only exception is here on the North Queensland coastline between Cardwell down towards about Rollingston. I think these are just too big of a numbers. I reckon they're going to be closer to about 100 millimetres down here. But Cardwell up to Innisfail, spot accumulations up to 400 millimetres expected. Widespread falls between 200 and 300 millimetres expected there. Palm Island, you get another 100 millimetres of rainfall. Townsville as well, like I've been saying, up to about 150 millimetres, which is basically what the forecast model here is saying. And then falls between 200 and 300 millimetres. Spot falls up to about 300 millimetres expected around the Horton River catchment and Giro, and then down towards Ayr as well. And then the rain pretty much easing off around the Ayr area. And between other forecast models as well, you can see that the rainfall accumulations were reciprocated pretty evenly there as well. I mean, you can see the bulk of the rainfall from the East Mid-West forecast between Townsville down towards Ayr, up to about 300 millimetres expected there. So some really significant falls expected pretty much all around here. The GFS and the Eastern WF are saying pretty much the exact same thing in terms of rainfall as well. It is still a little bit of a wild card, like I have been saying, in terms of where exactly this rainfall falls, but I think it is pretty set in stone at this time that we're going to see it between Townsville down towards Ayr, but we could also see some pretty heavy falls around the Rollingston and the Palumba Dam area through here as well. I think I forgot to mention that at the start of the video, but in terms of significant falls, it's certainly not going to be too impactful in terms of causing major flooding again. The river levels have certainly peaked in this area here. They're not likely to rise above their maximum already, so everywhere that's already been flooded, whilst it will still continue to be flooded and severely water damaged over the coming couple of days, I'm not expecting new locations to receive significant flooding later on tonight, especially around the Herbert River catchment. I'm not expecting the water levels to rise above their record highs so far this flooding event. But yeah, definitely around the Townsville area, some more flash flooding expected there, and then flash and riverine flooding around the Giro and the Ayr area. It is quite a concerning look at the forecast, that's for sure, and it's just being driven by all of this tropical moisture. I mean, it just refuses to stop. Take a look at this just thick band of convection that's now streaming in here throughout the North Queensland coastline, coupled with the radar imagery. I mean, it really is a scary, scary picture, with a lot more rainfall still to come here up in far North Queensland. It really is quite a concerning forecast, that's for sure. And like I said, still rainfall expected along the far North Queensland coastline, the Cassowary coast. You can see showers streaming in here now and towards Innisfail. They have started to ease off over the last couple of hours, but they did see some heavier falls earlier this morning and also in towards last night. The weather station at the base of Belinda and Kerr picked up a healthy couple of 100 millimetres as well over the last couple of days, so we can't be forgetting about our friends up in far North Queensland. They've had some significant falls as well. Now, if you do have photos, videos, footage, of course, don't risk it in getting me photos, videos, and footage, but if you do have them, then please do let me know. Send them through on emails or in Messenger as well. Make sure you follow me on Facebook as well. There's frequent updates coming out on this weather event as well when I can't release video updates. So again, all the support lately has been much appreciated. And of course, if you've got footage or photos that you'd like to share with me, or you'd like the world to see as well in terms of what's going on here, that I'd be more than happy to share them with followers. It would be very much appreciated, that's for sure. I've received a lot of photos, a lot of weather reports as well around the Herbert River area, and also around the Townsville area and on Palm Island. I've received a lot of reports over there, and it's been really, really helpful in giving out the best information possible. And I do feel like we've done a very good job here at Cyclones Oz, giving out the best and most reliable information possible during this weather event, which is a great honour, and I'm very happy that I've been of help to a lot of people up in far North Queensland. This is a very significant flooding event that's unfolded here. I wish I could have done more for them, but yeah, there's really not enough that we can do up in far North Queensland right now in terms of coverage for a weather event like this. It really is quite significant indeed. Now, whilst this has been, of course, one of the worst floods on record for far North Queensland, if anywhere can recover from this around Australia, it is, of course, the people around Townsville, the Herbert and Lower Burdekin region. They're some of the toughest people in the country, so they will band together, they will recover from this, they will move through it, which is very promising indeed. However, this has been very, very significant indeed, and we can cannot lose sight of just the losses that have been taken by these people up in Far North Queensland. It's been devastating to see. So if you do live up in Far North Queensland, there's going to be a big call to action for help, for people to do road repairs, for people to do tree removals, just anything that you can do to help. So anyways, that is all that I have time for today. Thank you so much for watching the broadcasts today as well, and checking out the Facebook as well. It is much appreciated. Subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a like on the video as well. The support has been much appreciated lately, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.